Hey everyone, my name is Chloe, and today I'm here to tell you about the books that I read last week. So this is kind of a unique week in the fact that there are no middle grade books to talk about. My kids and I are in the middle of some long books, and personally I didn't read any middle grade, so we've got 6 adult books to talk about. So let's just get into it. So ratings wise, it was pretty average. I had 2 3 stars, 2 3.5 stars, a 4 star, and a 4.5. So 3.58 was the average. That's about my average always. So let's just hop into it. So the first one is Take a Look at Me Now by Anita Notaro. So this is a tome that has been on my shelf forever, and it's one that actually I got, I think, in Ireland, which really ages it. It's been years and years and years. And so anyway, this one, the length intimidated me, but I finally just did it. So the first chapter opens up with the perspective of a woman named Allie, and she is in the water with her 3-ish-year-old son, and they just wade in too deep. Things get out of hand, and she is trying to call for help because she's drowning. And so they come and take her kid and somehow don't rescue her, so she ends up drowning. And I really, it hooked me, but I also really, really, really wanted more of wait, what just happened? Because it was hard to visualize. It was not a well-written first chapter, if that's all it was, and that is all it is. So the rest of the book is then told from her twin sister's perspective, as she is picking up the pieces of her sister's death, trying to figure out what to do with this 3-year-old little boy, and also trying to figure out who the little boy's baby daddy is, because we don't know, and she loves this boy and does not want a paternity thing coming up later now that her sister is gone. And so she's trying to figure it out, which again, that motivation doesn't make a ton of sense. And we find out more about the sister. And I think it says even in the back, but the sister was some sort of escort. And so we find 4 or 5 different men that she was involved with. And I feel like that also really was distracting, because this woman, we want to be sad that she's gone, and yet she's involved with all these married men, and it's just all these men are unlikable because they're all doing things with other people outside of their marriages. And I don't know, I don't know who we were supposed to empathize with, if anybody. Sort of the sister, but the sister also has her own stuff going on that makes her not really likable. So this read relatively quickly. It kept me somewhat interested, but I really wanted a point to the story, and there's just not a lot, this was just not, there's no characters you like, and for a character, this is pretty much a character study, so to not like anybody made it kind of meh. This is going to be 3 stars, probably going to unhaul it. Then we have The Collected Regrets of Clover by Mickey Brammer. So I had heard such good things about this. So I just recently got it from Book of the Month, even though it's from, I don't know, I don't think they say anymore. Oh, May 2023. So this is an older book, but I just got it recently and read it immediately because I keep hearing about it. And this is about a woman who is, I can't remember her name, Clover. Okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. Clover, she is a death doula, and she has come into this profession by witnessing a lot of death really young. So when she was 5 in kindergarten, her teacher died in their class. Then when she was 6, her parents both died. And so she was raised by her grandpa in a very solitary life. And she just kind of has a lot of walls built up. She becomes a death doula and really becomes a companion and a safe space to people in their final days. And she keeps notebooks that are advice, life lessons, regrets, all these things, these kind of last words from people that she's working with. And so then she gets a grandson hires her to, be the death doula for his grandmother, even though his grandmother doesn't know she's dying or does, whatever. And so they have a relationship, and through that, we kind of see Clover. She also makes a friend, but through all these relationships, she kind of comes out of her shell. And the moral of this story is just that life is meant to be lived and not just existed through. And so I liked that. What I didn't love is that there's not a lot of introspection from Clover herself. She seems very stoic and very indifferent and just very unemotional. And there's a couple conversations with her friend about is she asexual? Does she have a desire for companionship, etc., outside of these kind of short-lived things? And I wanted more like introspection from Clover. I wanted to know like clearly these things, this like kind of stoicism and detachment and all of that is kind of a coping strategy, a coping mechanism, or a defense strategy. I just wanted some introspection, and I wanted to know more about her and like how those things were serving her, and how she chose to let them go, to let people in. And I just wanted a little more from this. So I thought it was really interesting. The idea of a death doula is really interesting. And especially like this pregnancy, I have a birth doula for the first time ever. And it's just interesting, like the nature of doulas and how they usher in birth or death or whatever, and how it is a very natural stage of life. But she also, like, I know it makes her feel things because she takes time off after each one, and she's impacted, but there's just not, like, I just wanted a little bit more from this book. So I gave it 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. It was somewhat unique, but I wanted a little bit more. Then this one was probably my favorite of the week, which is really surprising to me. It's Matrescence on Birth or Pregnancy, Childbirth, and Motherhood by Lucy Jones. So this is one that I got from the publisher. I can't remember when it came out, but I feel like maybe last year at some point. And I didn't know. I kind of thought this would be not something I was super interested in, but I actually really like this. So the whole point of this, it's a nonfiction book about this word matrescence. I don't know if it's a real word or not, but it's about a woman's evolution into being a mother, you know. And so she talks multiple, like she draws a lot of comparisons between humans becoming mothers and like the natural animal world, and how different animals become mothers and what that means for them, like physically, psychologically, like in all the ways, and within their culture and their society. And just how we have a hard time in Western cultures with motherhood and with treating mothers with the reverence that like birth deserves and pregnancy deserves. And, you know, so, like we don't have maternity leave for, I mean, especially here in the United States, maternity leave is really hard to come by. And even if we do, it's 6 or 12 weeks, and then you're expected to be back in normal form, when like there is evidence that like your child's DNA is still in your body. Like your physiology changes with every pregnancy. And it's just so interesting. And just especially in this season, we're about to have our 4th baby. And so life is really, really busy. And just the whole, it takes a village, and the mom should be really resting after birth and allowing her body to kind of recalibrate, as well as just have that time with your baby. And it really, like this, along with some of the other things that I've been reading, have really made me want to just like pause our life as much as possible when this baby comes, and just enjoy that, and also allow myself to recover, because we live in a Western culture where it's very encouraged to just jump back on the horse. Like, especially I have been feeling so rough the end of this pregnancy that like I have a feeling I'm going to be feeling a lot better. And I'm one that like loves the newborn stage, and I get kind of like a birth high, where the first couple weeks it's like I just can't sit still. But we need to honor our bodies and stuff. This book also, like, it is very feminist, I would say, in a lot of ways, and very kind of bashes on our culture, but then it also talks about the gift of motherhood and what a great thing it is, and just how awesome it is that we get to experience these things. So it's not all like forget the man kind of thing. It is there's a little bit of that, but it's also really positive too. So yeah, I think it's also talks a lot about the duality of feelings, and how you can be so in love with your kids, but also really like resentful or ambivalent about the situation. And this does quote a lot of different other books and things that you can dive more into. And yeah, just how society says like enjoy every second, even though it is objectively one of the hardest, most overstimulating, most exhausting physically stages of life. Yeah. So she talks a lot about the value of mothers, and how as a society we don't really recognize that value, but it's there. So that was a really long rant, but I really like this book. Then for Series September, I'm working on Series September somewhat. I read 2 and 3 in Robin Carr's Sullivan's Crossing series. So I read number 1 many moons ago, and I had 2 and 3 on my shelf. So the first, number 2 is Any Day Now. This is a series of companion books that I think you can pick up and read as standalones if you would like. However, I think you get a lot of characters from the previous books, so I would suggest reading it in order. But anyway, in this one, this is about Sierra and Connie. So Sierra is the sister to one of the main characters from the first book, and she is a former alcoholic, just kind of has had a rough life, involved in a lot of bad crowds, and she had a really bad breakup where this man was threatening to her, and they were involved in a hit and run where he was the driver, and she really just needed to start over. So she goes to Sullivan's Crossing. Well, Sullivan's Crossing is a campground that her brother's father-in-law owns, so I don't know what that makes her, but the town is Timberlake or something, Timberlake, Colorado, I think. Anyway, so she goes there, and she's with her brother and his wife and all that kind of stuff, and she starts over, tries to confront some of the demons in her past, etc., etc. These are, I would say, this series is like a 3.5 star series, where it's somewhat deeper romance, and they're all fine but not super duper memorable. Then the next one is The Family Gathering, which follows a brother. So Cal and Sierra are siblings, as well as Dakota, who is in this. He is former military. He was kind of dishonorably discharged, and really because he's got very strong opinions about the way things should go. So he's discharged from the military. He comes back to Timberlake or whatever, and he has a relationship with Sid, the local bartender, who is actually like this genius. She is a professor and all the things, but her former husband had really dulled her and shaken her confidence and all the things. And so again, it's about Sid kind of trying to regather herself, find herself. Dakota learning to commit to something because he's been very anti-commitment. The siblings, their parents all were had some mental health issues, had some drug abuse issues. They had a rough upbringing. So it's just fun. Well, not fun. Interesting, I guess, watching how it manifested in all the different siblings. So this one was fine. And then last we have Girls in Trouble by Caroline Leavitt. So this is another one that I read off my shelf. So I finished 2 physically off my shelf this month, and that feels really good because it's rare. I've been really wanting to physically read. But this is another one that opens with a boom of a first chapter. It's about Sarah. She is 16 and she's in the back of a car about to give birth. Her parents are taking her to the hospital and she is really struggling. And she gets to the hospital. She's asking for 2 people named George and Eva. So we kind of figure out what's going on. She was young, in love, and got pregnant and couldn't, her parents said she couldn't keep the baby. And so she's giving up the baby to this couple named George and Eva. Okay, so in her pregnancy, Sarah was like a daughter to George and Eva. She's over there all the time. Her own parents, she has a strained relationship with them. So she is really kind of treating George and Eva as parents, and really, really, really close. So they plan to have an open adoption in which Sarah is involved in the baby's life, but George and Eva are the parents. So, of course, baby comes. She's got some second thoughts. I don't want to say a whole lot about this because this book went a lot of different places, and we follow Sarah, George, Eva, and the baby until the baby herself is 16 years old. So this follows a lot of time, and we just kind of watch the evolution of that those relationships as things go on. There's some times that are kind of stressful, kind of a little thrillery. There's some times that are really sweet and heartwarming. I will say this book ends with a pretty happy bow on it. I did want just a better ending for one of our characters, but overall this was a good book, and it's got teeny tiny font, and again, it's pretty long, and so I'm really proud of myself for reading these 2 books physically off my shelf. So yeah, again, that spreadsheet, I've talked about it in a few videos. I made a spreadsheet of every book I own. If you are feeling slumpy, that's a hot take. I would say definitely do, or a hot tip, I guess, definitely do that because I'm so motivated to get that shelf down. So I'm reading a lot off my shelf, and it's really motivating. So that's it. That's everything I read in the last week. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you read and what you're up to this week, and we'll see you in the next one.